The porcelain doll sat on my doorstep, its vacant blue eyes staring up at me accusingly. A pink bow adorned its golden curls, and a note was pinned to its frilly white dress. "Practice with this since you can't have real kids. Love, Diana." My hands trembled as I picked up the doll, my mother-in-law's latest gift in her ongoing campaign to remind me of my supposed failures as a wife. I'd been married to Michael for 3 years, and for 3 years, Diana had made it her mission to point out that I hadn't given her son children yet. At first, it was subtle, leaving baby magazines around her house when we visited, forwarding emails about miracle fertility treatments, making pointed comments about how all her friends were becoming grandmothers. But lately, her tactics have become more aggressive, more public, more cruel. "What's that?" Michael asked as I walked into our kitchen, the doll dangling from my hand. His eyes darkened when he saw the note. "Mom again." I nodded, dropping the doll onto our counter. "Your mother's latest demonstration of her boundless compassion." Michael ran his hands through his dark hair, a gesture I'd come to recognize as his tell for feeling trapped between his wife and his mother. "I'll talk to her. Like you talked to her last week, or the week before." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Or maybe like that great talk you had with her when she sent me that box of baby clothes with a note saying, 'Hopefully you'll have use for these someday if you try hard enough.'" "Emma, please." He reached for me, but I stepped back. She's old-fashioned. She doesn't understand." "She understands perfectly well," I said, pulling away from his attempt at an embrace. "She understands that we've been trying for 2 years. She understands that we've been to fertility specialists. She understands that I've had 3 miscarriages. She just doesn't care." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. We both knew he wouldn't really confront his mother. He never did. Diana had raised him alone after his father died when Michael was just 5, and that fact had become her shield, her weapon, and her excuse for every boundary she crossed. "Thanksgiving dinner is tomorrow," Michael said finally, changing the subject. "Mom's expecting us at 6. I stared at the doll on our counter, its painted smile mocking me. "I'm not going." "Emma?" "No." I picked up the doll and thrust it at him. "I'm not going to sit there while she makes her little comments and gives me her little looks and tells everyone how wonderful it would be to finally have a grandchild. I'm done." "She invited the whole family this year," Michael said softly. "All my cousins, my aunts, everyone. They're expecting us both." "Perfect." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. An audience for her performance. Is that why she's been escalating, building up to the big show? Michael's silence was answer enough. I turned away, fighting back tears. The fertility treatments had been hard enough. The endless doctor's appointments, the hormone injections, the roller coaster of hope and despair. But Diana's constant needling made everything worse, turning our private struggle into public spectacle. "I'll tell her to back off," Michael promised, like he had a dozen times before. "Really, this time I will." I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Diana. "Got my special gift? See you tomorrow, dear. Wear something nice. Everyone's so excited to see you both. Especially Aunt Martha. She's been asking why she doesn't have any great nieces or nephews yet." My hands shook as I showed Michael the message. His face fell, but I could already see him preparing his usual excuses. "She's just excited about having the family together." "Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. I'll go tomorrow. But not for her, and not for you. I'll go because I'm done being her victim. I'm done being the subject of her gossip and her pity and her judgment." "What does that mean?" Michael asked, worry creeping into his voice. I walked to our home office, unlocking the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a manila envelope I'd been holding onto for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Maybe Diana's latest gift was a sign that the moment had finally arrived. "It means," I said, tucking the envelope into my bag, "that your mother might want to be careful what she wishes for at dinner tomorrow." That night, I lay awake long after Michael had fallen asleep, rehearsing what I would say, how I would act, when I would choose my moment. Diana had spent 3 years crafting her narrative about me, her barren daughter-in-law, the failure who couldn't give her precious son a child. Tomorrow, at her perfectly orchestrated Thanksgiving dinner, in front of all her carefully selected witnesses, I would finally tell my side of the story. I touched my bag where the envelope waited, its contents about to shatter Diana's world just as thoroughly as she tried to shatter mine. Practice with this, she'd written on the doll's note. But I had something else in mind for tomorrow's practice session. Practicing the art of truth-telling, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. As I finally drifted off to sleep, the porcelain doll sat in our kitchen, its empty eyes staring at nothing, its painted smile holding secrets that would soon bring Diana's carefully constructed world crashing down around her. Diana's house was exactly what you'd expect from someone who treated life like a performance. Perfectly manicured lawn, symmetrical wreaths on the double doors, and through the windows, the dining room table looked like a magazine spread for perfect family Thanksgiving. Ready? Michael squeezed my hand as we walked up the path. I touched the envelope in my purse and nodded. I was more than ready. The door swung open before we could knock. "There's my boy," Diana exclaimed, pulling Michael into a hug. She was wearing an expensive-looking cream sweater and pearls, her silver hair styled immaculately. When she turned to me, her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Emma, dear, I hope you're feeling well." The pause before well was deliberate, designed to make everyone within earshot wonder what might be wrong with me. I learned to decode Diana's subtle digs over the years, each one crafted to seem innocent while landing like a knife between my ribs. "I'm feeling perfect," I replied, matching her saccharine tone. "And I got your thoughtful gift yesterday." "Of the doll." She laughed, the sound like tinkling glass. "I just thought, well, since you seem to be having such trouble with the real thing." Michael tensed beside me, but before he could speak, Diana's sister Martha appeared in the hallway. "Is that Emma? Come here, dear, let me look at you." She bustled forward, enveloping me in a cloud of expensive perfume. Still so slim, though I suppose without any babies. I caught Diana's smirk as she turned away. The show was beginning right on schedule. The house was full of relatives, all circling like well-dressed sharks. Diana's brother Thomas and his wife Susan, their 3 children running around with their cousins. Michael's cousin Patricia, bouncing her newborn while giving me sympathetic looks. Each conversation was a minefield of careful questions and loaded comments. "No little ones yet?" Susan asked, adjusting her youngest on her hip. "You know my friend had trouble too, but she tried this amazing fertility diet." "Have you considered adoption?" Patricia offered, not for the first time. "Though I suppose it's not the same as having your own." Through it all, Diana floated around like a queen at court, orchestrating her symphony of subtle cruelty. Every time she passed me, she managed to work children into the conversation. "Oh, Emma, could you move your wine glass? The kids need somewhere to sit." "Emma, dear, would you like to help in the kitchen? Since you don't have to watch any little ones." When we finally sat down to dinner, I found myself directly across from Diana, exactly where she wanted me. The table was picture perfect: golden turkey, crystal glasses, autumn centerpieces. Diana stood, raising her wine glass. "Before we eat, I want to thank everyone for being here. Family is everything to me." Her eyes swept the table, lingering on the children. "Watching our family grow, seeing new generations join us. There's nothing more precious." She paused, and I knew what was coming. I reached for my purse under the table. "Of course," Diana continued, her voice dripping with false concern. "I pray every night that our family will continue to grow. That those of us who haven't been blessed with children yet will finally know the joy of motherhood." She looked directly at me. "Though some of us might need to try a little harder. Perhaps that little doll I gave you will help you practice, Emma dear." The table went silent. Even the children seemed to sense the tension, their forks pausing halfway to their mouths. "Actually, Diana," I said, my voice steady as I pulled out the envelope, "I've been meaning to thank you for that doll. It made me realize it was time to stop practicing and start being honest." "Honest?" Diana's smile flickered. "What do you mean, dear?" "Emma," Michael started, but I touched his arm. "It's okay," I said. "Your mother wants to talk about having children. Let's talk about it." I opened the envelope, my hands perfectly steady now. "Let's talk about why we really haven't had any children yet." Diana's face paled slightly. "I don't think this is the time." "It's the perfect time," I interrupted. "You invited everyone here to witness this, didn't you? To watch you shame me in front of the whole family? So let's give them the whole story." The room was so quiet you could hear the ticking of Diana's precious antique clock. Michael stared at me, confusion written across his face. He had no idea what was in the envelope. Nobody did. Except Diana. I could see it in her eyes now, the first flicker of real fear. She knew what was coming, or at least she suspected. And for the first time since I'd known her, Diana, the great orchestrator, the perfect mother, the flawless matriarch, was not in control. I pulled out the first document, my hands steady, my voice clear. The time for practice was over. Now it was time for the performance Diana had always wanted, just not the one she planned. These are medical records, I said, my voice carrying across the silent table. Not mine, though Diana's been happy to blame me for our lack of children. These are Michael's records. Michael looked at me, confusion etched on his face. What records? The ones your mother has been hiding from you for 20 years. I placed the papers on the table. The ones from when you were 12, after your childhood illness. The ones that show you're the one who can't have children. Diana stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. Stop this right now. You knew, I said, looking directly at her. You knew all along that Michael was sterile. You knew when we started trying for a baby. You knew through every fertility treatment, every miscarriage scare, every cruel comment about my supposed failure. The color had drained from Diana's face. Around the table, relatives sat frozen, forks suspended midair, mouths agape. Mom? Michael's voice was barely a whisper. Is this true? Diana's hands fluttered like trapped birds. I was protecting you. By torturing me? I cut in. By making me think it was my fault. By sending me dolls and baby clothes and turning me into the family failure. I found these records by accident, I continued, turning to face the shocked family members. They were mixed in with some old papers Diana asked us to store when she was renovating. Records showing that Michael's childhood bout with mumps left him sterile. Records she's had since he was 12 years old. All this time, Michael said, his voice shaking. All those doctor's appointments, the treatments, watching Emma blame herself. You knew. Sweetheart. Diana reached for him, but he jerked away. I just wanted to protect you. I couldn't bear for you to know. Know what? Michael stood up. That I couldn't have children. So instead he let my wife think it was her fault. You watched her suffer, watched her cry, watched her go through painful treatments, knowing the truth all along. The perfect Thanksgiving table had become a battlefield. Diana's carefully orchestrated performance had crumbled into chaos. The children were being quietly led from the room as the adults sat in stunned silence. I kept the records, I said, my voice softening. I waited, watching you send those cruel gifts, make those cutting remarks. I waited through every family gathering where you painted me as the failure. I waited because I wanted to understand if you'd ever show compassion, ever admit the truth. I picked up the porcelain doll I'd brought with me, placing it in front of her. But yesterday's gift showed me who you really are. Michael stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. We're leaving. Michael, please, Diana begged, tears streaming down her face. I was only trying to protect you. Protect me? He laughed bitterly. By torturing my wife? By making her think she was broken? That's not protection, Mom. That's cruelty. He turned to the stunned family members. I'm sorry you all had to witness this, but maybe it's fitting. Mom wanted an audience for her performance. She got one. Taking my hand, Michael led me toward the door. Behind us, Diana called out, her voice breaking. Where are you going? I turned back one last time. We're going home, Diana, to start looking into adoption, something we should have done years ago, if you hadn't been so busy protecting your son from the truth. I smiled, genuinely, and don't worry about sending any more dolls. We won't be needing them. The drive home was quiet, Michael's hands tight on the steering wheel. Finally, he spoke. I'm so sorry, Emma, for everything she put you through, for not seeing it sooner. I reached over and took his hand. It's not your fault, but now we can start fresh. No more blame, no more shame, no more practice dolls. Just us facing the truth together. He squeezed my hand, and I knew that while this wasn't the ending Diana had scripted for her perfect family drama, it was the beginning of something better, something real. Sometimes the most important family isn't the one you're born into, but the one you choose to build together, dolls and traumatic mothers-in-law not included.